When it comes to developmental delays in children, there are three main frustrations we have as experts and specialists in neurodevelopment that I bet frustrate you too as a parent. First, the vast majority of red flags and real root causes of developmental delays are frequently and often entirely missed by the conventional pediatrician. Second, even when the delays with gross motor development, fine motor skills, speech or sensory, social, and behavioral issues show up, and a referral is made to early intervention and so forth, there's still no one provider who can help the parents make sense of what's going on and tie everything together. And third, when a child is already going through a full complement of traditional therapies, but failing to make progress, reaching plateaus, and still struggling, parents don't know where to turn to find out what's going on and what else can be done to help. What parents are often concerned about when it comes to developmental delays in their children is what's causing them and how do we get them back on track? And those questions are what this video right here is what we're going to dive into. According to the CDC, approximately 1 in 6 children in the United States has a developmental disability or delay. And I can tell you from firsthand clinical experience, about 6 out of 6 of us worry about our child's development and keep a close eye over every single thing, from tummy time to when they roll over, when they sit up, and when they walk, when they talk, and so much more, right? But unfortunately, for as much as we rightfully worry and keep a close eye on those things during those critical developmental stages for our children, it seems like again and again, any concerns we have are often dismissed by our conventional pediatrician, and we're just told, don't worry, they'll grow out of it. When deep down we know that's probably not true. Sadly, we're seeing an explosion of the rates of developmental delays in today's highly stressed and highly toxic world our kids are growing up in. And that 1 in 6 number mentioned before really doesn't do it justice for how many infants and toddlers we truly see off track with their motor milestones, sensory processing, leading to speech, and so much more each day in our office. Even if you've already received a diagnosis or a referral of some sort and have started traditional therapies like PT, OT, and speech, this video is for you. Every day, parents report to us that they're happy to have their child in these therapies, but they're concerned that they've plateaued or are not progressing at the speed or pace they'd like. And if that sounds like you, then this video is made especially for you. Parents, you deserve to know more, and you deserve to know the truth about developmental delays. So let's dig in and deliver exactly that for you and your family with this video. But first, let's meet JoJo. JoJo first got started with care last year, and her development was a mess. She had faced all sorts of obstacles in her development with a stressful pregnancy, an emergency C-section delivery, torticollis, constipation, eczema, and to top things off, she had a genetic heart and neurological condition that required surgery as an infant, multiple medications, and has also led to a seizure disorder and medications. She was battling all of this as well. Add all of that up and it took a toll on her development. Despite being quite involved in PT, OT, and speech, she wasn't making much progress at all until she started to get adjusted. And then things took off. And as a little side note, we're going to jump into why that was the case later in this video. Why did things start to take off? Why did her developmental progress get back in shape? But right back to her. And as her neurological function and as her motor tone and coordination improved with every single adjustment, her development started to surge. She was able to sit up and utilize her core so much more, and then crawling and then climbing stairs, and now recently taking her first unassisted steps, walking, and having her speech and communication explode as well. And this rock star has a ways to developmentally go to finish catching up to her peers, but without chiropractic care, it's more than likely that she'd still be stuck and struggling with developmental milestones and facing a limited quality of life that simply isn't fair to her or her family. Now they get to see her smile, soar, and thrive as she keeps getting adjusted and keeps making progress. So what's holding our kids back? What is causing these developmental delays? Developmental delays aren't just a random occurrence or genetic bad luck. There are three main factors that we see almost every time in children with developmental delays, and we call them the perfect storm. Number one is fertility challenges and prenatal stress. Number two is birth trauma and interventions. And number three is early exposure to antibiotics and other environmental toxins. One of the big culprits of developmental delays we're continuing to see is that number two, the birth trauma, and how it has a high potential to affect the brainstem and other important neurological structures of the head and neck. Common interventions like forceps, vacuum extraction, and C-sections can cause physical injury and damage to the brainstem, the neurospinal system, and the vagus nerve. And the reason this is important to know about is because both the autonomic and central nervous system have their air traffic control centers in the head, the neck, and brainstem region, which is directly responsible for essential developmental functions like motor planning, like tone, coordination, and sensory processing. These physical birth injuries lead to stress stuck on the nervous system. In chiropractic, we call that subluxation, but it's also known as dysregulation of the nervous system and something called dysautonomia. When a child gets stuck and stays stuck from the injury, from their head being pulled. I had a mom literally just the other day tell me she felt her body being lifted off the table from the amount of force they were using to try and pull her baby out during an emergency C-section. Baby got stuck and is now delivered, right? They did what they needed to do to get done what they needed to get done. And then there's the aftermath of that reality. In any intervention, there is often a massive amount of stress and physical tension placed on the head and neck. The brain senses it, and whether it creates an injury or it's irritated, the brain senses that and responds to it with the guarded tone, with the guarded tension, with subluxation. It shifts into that protection mode, that sympathetic fight or flight side of the autonomic nervous system. And what does that look like in a baby? Higher tone, colic. They're more irritable. They're easily startled. They can't find a comfortable position. They have difficulty latching. They're constipated. They have reflux, what have you. And the more they stay in this stuck sympathetic state due to subluxation, the more this affects the foundation and trajectory of their development. One of the quotes we always point back to by an epigenetic doctor, Dr. Bruce Lipton, says you can't be in growth and protection at the same time. I'll say it again. You can't be in growth and protection at the same time. When a baby is perceiving their world as a threat, that's what subluxation does. That's what stuck stress and tension on the nervous system does. It floods the brain with stress, stress, stress. It floods the brain with aberrant information, noise. The brain responds. Oh, I'm perceiving stress. I'm going to respond with stress response. It's that stress response, that fight or flight tone, that sympathetic dominant state. And when a baby is spending more time within that protection mode, they're not accomplishing the basic functions of life: eating, sleeping, pooping, and moving like they could or should. And they're not progressing through development like they could or should, because the way neurology works, nerves that fire together wire together. The way a child builds their brain is through motor movement, vestibular movement, sensory input. But if that motor movement is hindered, if the pathways of sensory information is interfered with because of subluxation, because of excessive sympathetic activity, then the quality of their development is hindered, which impacts overall development. Because the quality of how a child goes through each developmental milestone is based on the quality of the previous step. And understanding this helps us to understand why we'll see kids who've been to PT, OT, and other therapies and have reached a plateau or aren't seeing the progress that they've hoped. We love working with PTs, with OTs, with speech therapists, with play therapists. We do co-care with various patients. But when kids aren't getting nervous system-based care, their progress might plateau. And the reason for this is because PTs, OTs, speech therapists, and others are trained to assess the muscles and the soft tissue and not necessarily neurological function in the brainstem or the neurospinal system. So they can miss the underlying neurological dysfunction and subluxation that is the real root cause of the developmental delays and missed motor milestones. And that's why the sequence and how we address things is so key. And in order to know the sequence, we need to know how the nervous system develops. So we're going to switch into this view here, and we're going to go over the hierarchy of neurological development. So really what we're looking at here is, how does the brain develop? How does the nervous system form? And it starts with the foundation here, the autonomic and central nervous system. This is the fight or flight side of the nervous system and the rest and digest side of the nervous system. This is, how is our brain perceiving its environment? Is it stressful? Is it something that it needs to respond in that fight or flight state? Or is it calming? Is it nourishing input? Is it something that we can respond in that rest and digest side of the nervous system? And the reason this is so important, is because this is the foundation upon how we move, how our immune system and gut function, and how we feel, and then also how our brain operates, our speech, our sensory, our behavioral, our social and emotional regulation. All of this is built on the quality of the previous step. Let's get rid of that there. Here we go. So when our system is in, let's say, more of a gas pedal state, it's going to influence our motor tone. Our brain is built through movement, right? Our ability to build connections between the hemispheres of the brain is built through something like crawling. So if our system is so on the gas that it skips that crawling milestone, it's influencing how our brain develops overall. Gut and immune go hand in hand. You ever heard of certain things like depression? Or a lot of people will say, well, it's an imbalance of chemicals in the brain. I'm not feeling well. And it's a lot in part due to that brain-gut connection, that gut-brain connection. How is our brain perceiving its internal environment? If our system's in the gas pedal, if there's inflammation pumping throughout the system, if we're less concerned about digesting our food and more concerned about running away from a bear, the blood flow shifts to the muscle system, away from the digestive system. It impacts our gut and immune function. It influences our ability to assimilate, absorb, and use proper nutrition. But it's also communicating to our brain, hey, you're stressed. There's something going on. Something isn't right. So then the brain responds with more of that gas pedal tone. And that's where we say stuck. That's what subluxation is, stuck in that gas pedal state. And this is why it's so key and crucial of how we approach helping a child with developmental delays, because we can go from a top-down approach where we focus on the brain, where we do awesome therapies like counseling, like psych evaluations, like speech and OT. No, OT's down here. Like speech. Or we can do it from this standpoint as well. Work with the muscle system, work with the motor system, and affect that in a way where our system is being influenced from that standpoint. But if we don't work from the foundational aspect, if we aren't addressing that nervous system is staying in the gas pedal, it's staying on that fight or flight side of the nervous system, we're just reinforcing this neurology. We're impacting the nervous system's trajectory of how it continues to develop. And that's why it's so key and important to start with addressing the central and autonomic nervous system. And the beauty of the body is that it really takes over and it is able to progress through development when this is clear. Sometimes we don't even need to jump into the other therapies. Sometimes we do co-care. We start with care with neuro-focused work, and then kids start to explode with their development in speech, in PT, in OT. And you're like, man,
This kid is now talking. I can't get him to stop talking. This kid is now moving and they're progressing. They're getting stronger. This kid is now gut function and immune function, and they're more pleasant and they're happy to be around. Like all of these things start to happen. This is typically how we see healing happen as well, is when the nervous system gets back into a balanced state. When we're not perceiving the world as such a threat because of subluxation, when subluxation is addressed, when nervous system dysregulation is addressed, they start to heal. They start to go through that further development. They start to experience the positive effects of all of these foundational aspects of neurological development. Just to jump into the perfect storm stressors here, these are typically what sets off each stage of development. What are the stressors that impact this? Early on, it's the maternal distress, the pregnancy, when there's lots of stress here. It impacts how our nervous system, from a foundational level, from day one, how it is perceiving its world. A lot of that is greatly due to how mom is perceiving her world in those moments when baby is developing on the inside. What greatly affects the neuromotor system is those birth interventions, is different falls, is poor posture. All of these things will impact that. Gut function, toxins, chemicals, preservatives, brain based, what we do to check out with social media, technology, different emotions, different social settings will be stressors to our system. And all of this stacks up. And when a system from a foundational level is just a little bit off, and then we add stress, and then more stress, and then more stress throughout development, we stay in that gas pedal state, and nerves that wire together fire together, and we start to build a brain that is better off at gas pedal function. It takes less to set them off. It takes less to have a meltdown. Or we're so exhausted that we don't even go through further development, and our system stays in protection mode because it doesn't need to access social and emotional developmental skills or speech skills, because it's really just trying to run away from the bear. So switching back, let's see, here we go. If you're tired of watching your child struggle and feeling like something is missing in their care, it's time to consider a different approach. At Rising Health, we specialize in neurologically focused chiropractic care that addresses the root causes of developmental delays, that foundational aspect of that pyramid: subluxation, nervous system dysfunction, and dysregulation, so that a child's nervous system can get back on track with their milestones and with their development and overall health. We use cutting edge technology called insight scans to actually measure and find your child's exact level, location, and severity of subluxation and neurological dysfunction, so you know exactly what's holding them back developmentally. To really know what's going on with your child, you've got to look deeper. And these insight scans give you the answers that no longer leave you guessing. We can address the root cause right at its core. Don't wait to take action. Infants and young children are developing at a rapid rate, and every month their developmental delays remain can hold them back in a major way. Visit our website or click the link in our bio to schedule a consultation and insight scan for your child. Let's work together to unlock your child's developmental potential and set them on the path to thriving, not just surviving. And remember, your child's future isn't set in stone. With the right support and understanding of the root causes, remarkable progress is possible. Reach out today to learn more about how we can help your child overcome their developmental challenges. That's all for this one. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking with me. Be blessed and have a wonderful day.